In the previous video, I showed you how to add simple and effective AJAX functionality to your page, but we ran into a bit of a problem when it came to updating the HTML on the page. In this video, I'll show you how to solve that problem by returning small bits of HTML, stored in partial views, from your controller actions, which you can retrieve and render to your page using AJAX. As we've currently implemented it, the user clicks the bid button to submit their bid to the server. And we are submitting that bid via an AJAX call in a bit of custom JavaScript code. The server then responds with an HTTP status code to indicate whether the request was successful or not, an HTTP OK response when the bid succeeds, or an HTTP bad request response when the bid fails. Other than these response codes, however, the server returns no content, nothing for the browser to use in order to update its page with the current information. This approach is not really optimal. Instead, let's have the server return some HTML that the browser can use to update its page, an approach commonly known as partial view rendering. Since the partial view rendering approach is so common, ASP.NET MVC provides a special helper that makes it quite easy, the partial helper. The partial helper is very similar to the view helper we've been using. In other words, all it really does is render views. In fact, the only major difference between the partial and view helpers is that the partial helper will never display a layout. In order to use the partial helper, we start by creating a partial view with HTML that should be rendered to the browser. In our scenario, we want to render a small block of HTML that contains the updated current price. So let's create a new partial view in our auctions folder named _current price and populate it with the following content. Then we can switch back to the controller action and use the partial helper to render this view by name. Notice how I'm leaving the conditional statement that checks to see if the request is an AJAX request. This is because partial views are only ever meant to be sent in response to an AJAX request. All other requests should still be redirected to the auction action. By including this logic in our controller, it is able to handle a variety of scenarios, including requests made by both AJAX form posts and normal form posts. With the server-side partial view rendering in place, let's update the JavaScript in our view to accept that HTML and add it to our page. First, find the success method that gets executed when our AJAX request succeeds. Then, remove the JavaScript alert that we put in there previously. Since the HTML that the server returns is meant to override or replace a current section of HTML markup in our view, we'll use jQuery to find that section that we want to replace. Then, we can use the jQuery replaceWith method to replace that section with the HTML that we received from the server, like so. We'll then copy this current price CSS class that we're using to locate the element and add it as a class name to the current price element that we'd like to replace. Notice too that our partial view also has this class in place. This means that we can continue to bid on the auction and continue to update the content. And that's all you need to do. Go ahead and run the site and bid on an auction. When you do, you can see the current price section getting updated every time you bid. If you open up Internet Explorer's debugger with F12 and look at the Network tab, you can see our AJAX request being posted. In this video, I showed you how to return small bits of HTML from your controller actions so they could be rendered to your page using AJAX. In the next video, I'll show you an even more efficient approach, sending down only the data that needs to be displayed and letting the browser figure out how to turn that data into usable HTML.